Talking Paranormal.
Hello, in this new episode, I am here with Rebecca Kennelly from Whitehouse Investigations, which you may realise is my team, and this is my wonderful sister. Hello, Bex.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's about time we had this episode.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
So, well, where to start, really? Why? Why do you do ghost hunting at all? A lot of people are fascinated in paranormal investigating and wouldn't dare do it. So why are you doing it?
I think that the honest reason is probably because of you.
Right.
I would say you got me into the paranormal from a very young age. So I blame you.
Okay, my fault. So you're not really looking for anything other than you were like, oh yeah, I'll do that too.
I think I would say that when I started, I wasn't necessarily looking for anything in particular. Now that I've been on tons of investigations, I feel like I almost have more questions than I did when I started.
What evidence, if any, are you actually looking for? What would prove it to you more so?
That's a really tough question. I think I'm way more skeptical than I actually think I am. So I have to have, for me to say, wow, I cannot explain that. There is no fathomable explanation to make me think that couldn't be anything but a spirit. That's what I'm looking for. So whether that be Ouija board, so glass movement and words that come through, or seeing something, or hearing noises, it could be anything. But for me, if I can't explain it and nobody in the team has a reasonable explanation, that's when I'm left thinking, well, that was impressive.
It's a fine line though, isn't it, between that was paranormal and that must have been just natural, and how do you determine that?
Yeah, and I think as well, I can be at an investigation and we can all be sat there thinking, oh my gosh, that was amazing. There's no explanation for that. I can only say that was spirit. But then I find myself days later picking it apart, and it's almost like time makes me forget how amazing the evidence was. And I'm like, well, was it that good? Is it? Was there an explanation? And it's almost like the time, it just picks away at the evidence and makes me question my own memory.
I'm totally with you, because I am just the same. I always have been. Yeah, you'll witness something and you'll be completely overcome with belief, and then somehow it just diminishes to it can't have been.
Yeah. Oh well. What? Yeah. No. Rubbish. Or sometimes if it's something that's maybe spooked me or makes me almost, if it's so believable, I'm like, oh my god, I can't not believe. I almost talk myself out of it.
Yeah. It's a bit different for me because I end up reading investigations we've done and such as that and reviewing. And when I stumble over old investigations or watch our old videos, I'll see something and go, oh yeah, that was completely, and I'm back on board.
Yeah. And for me, it's things like if you rewatch the videos, and you see it and you can see the excitement in everyone's face, or you can see that it was none of the team members who were doing whatever it was, or you have to just remind yourself actually that a lot of the evidence that we've caught is really impressive.
Yeah. If you to put it in a scrapbook, it'd be a convincing argument, I think.
Yeah, so much so that I don't even tell Alice. So my 7, nearly 8-year-old daughter, she doesn't know I do it, because I think some of the things that we've actually witnessed, I think, God, if I told her that, it's almost like you can't not believe it. It has to be true.
So when will you tell her?
I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? I don't know, because I feel like I don't want her to think ghosts are real, because I think that as a kid, I remember believing in ghosts as a kid and it terrified me.
Yeah.
So I don't want her to grow up thinking, well, if mum goes out and investigates ghosts, then they must be real. And, what if there's a scary ghost in my house? Or, I think I'll wait until she's a little bit older, maybe teens. Although James tells her I go ghost hunting all the time, but she thinks it's a joke.
Oh, really?
So she's just like, oh yeah, Dad. So when she's older and I say, no, I actually am going ghost hunting, she'll be like, what? She'll be begging to come with me.
I do remember when Jacob was talking about ghosts, and I was like, well, you know, I can say for sure because, you know, I've witnessed this and this, and because I run a ghost hunting club, and he's like, what? Do you know what I mean? And I pulled
You're
out
right,
this, I
lad.
pulled out this scrapbook and endless files full of investigation reports and a Ouija board, and he's like, and he's looking at these newspaper clippings, going, "Is that you? Is that you had hair? You had hair?" I'm like, "Never mind that." You know what I mean?
And he's thinking, yeah, you've been leading this double life.
Yeah, like why hadn't you mentioned it before? You know, sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there'll be a time where it's right, but I just don't think it's quite right yet. It's
Yeah,
too
no,
young.
yeah, fair enough. So I guess the next question would be: is it dangerous? Do you think? How in danger do you feel?
So funny because I never really believed in attachments as such. I never, it's not that I didn't believe in evil, because I think that people can be evil, and I believed that bad people could come through and speak to us. I never believed in, you know, the underworld and demons and that sort of attachment until recently. But I also always do protection. So even though that's in my mind, I'm like, well, no, that can't be a thing. I'm always really sure to envisage the light and, you know, think happy thoughts almost. But then obviously when we went to York and things came up around evil, and after experiencing that second night, that I think since then, yeah, I think for me, I think it is dangerous. I don't think we can say it isn't anymore.
Elaborate on that, because someone listening is going to be like, "What's she talking about? I've never heard this podcast before."
Okay, so yeah, long and short of it, you and another team member, Lucy, you felt it would be a good idea to mess around a little bit with a few different Ouija boards, draw some pentagrams on the floor. I don't know what you did, some crazy chants or something, God knows. But we then feel, or we've been told, that then summoned some sort of evil entity. Is that right? I assume that's wrong.
This was weeks before York.
Weeks. And then were
yeah.
you feeling anything, or was Lucy feeling things up to the York? How did you feel that there was something?
Lucy went through a bad illness, and she had friends who were in a bad place. Her mother was in a bad place. She had all the bad vibes, and I didn't have any of that. So
and then we went
news
to
to me.
York. We went to York, didn't we? And the second night, obviously, we went to a house of a spirit. We've been there before. We went back, even though we were told not to go by said spirit. We went into that house thinking he was going to be the problem. And actually, we did Esther's method, Lucy upstairs, we were all downstairs. And honestly, if you haven't watched that video, you need to go watch it because it's insane. But the responses that we get through it is literally like there are spirits battling with some sort of demon, and we were downstairs holding hands, you know, we were being guided through almost like an exorcism. I know it sounds stupid.
It sounds ridiculous.
Sounds so far-fetched. Like I would have never ever thought, if I watched it, I'd be like, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
But honestly, being sat there, I remember being sat in the circle. It gives me chills even thinking about it now. And Lucy hearing through the headphones, it was draw across. I remember draw across.
Yeah.
And we were all holding hands, didn't dare let go because we didn't know if we were allowed to let go. And it was, you know, who, anyone, you know, it was just it was just like having a full-blown conversation, and it was like panic.
Yeah.
And then feeling the cold in the room. I have never felt anything like it. All I could envisage was something breathing over the top of us. It was awful. And from that point, I was really shaken by that. Like I literally had tears in my eyes because I thought, God, this is like something out of The Conjuring.
Yeah.
But from that point, it almost made me think, God, yeah, you actually have to be really respectful, because you don't know what you're going into. You don't know. It's like opening a can of worms. You just don't know what you're playing with and what you're messing with. And I would even say that that's the same for you. I feel like I think it shocked you a little bit, didn't it? And made you take a step back and think, bloody hell.
Oh, it was the one and only sort of main time where I was like, I am absolutely at my depth.
Yeah.
This is beyond me. This was in the hands of the spirit of that house looking after us.
And the spirit of the house didn't want us there. Didn't want us there, but actually then protected us and helped, really did help. And that's, I think, even now, if the thought of that spirit before would scare me. Now the thought of that spirit being around me actually gives me comfort, because I think you saved us at a time where actually, if you could have just fed us to the wolves and left us, and I actually don't know what would have happened. But I think, it opened my eyes a lot. It made me think we don't know everything. Just because we've been doing it for a long time, it's not something just to be messed around and played with. So yeah, I have a newfound respect for it, I think, especially like doing the protection and, being more sensible, I think.
But contrast that with our day-to-day investigations where you're thinking, can you just move that glass without us touching it? The power discrepancy there, like the big threat of danger, and then like can you not just tell me when you were born? Why have you got your last name wrong?
Yeah, and that's so frustrating. They're some of the most frustrating nights, when you just don't get anything through that makes sense, or it's just slow energy. But then in another sense, I always try and remind myself that those nights are really important, because if we went to every investigation and it was a whirlwind every time, I'd be thinking, well, surely that can't be right. Is it us? Like, is it, are we doing this? Are we moving? But when it's slow, it makes me say, well, it isn't us, is it? Because if it was us, we'd get responses every time. And even if it was unconscious, if we were subconsciously doing it and moving the glass, and then I don't feel like we'd have those slow, boring nights.
Yeah.
So I think they're just as important as the crazy nights.
Yeah. So what misconceptions do you think you've overcome now that you've investigated so long, that you would have thought, people on the couch might think ghost hunting was like? Or...
So for me, one thing that anytime I speak to somebody about ghost hunting, the first thing, every time without fail, the first thing they say is, do you do a Ouija board? Oh my God, no, that's so dangerous. And it makes me laugh, because I think, God, I was the same as that. Like 10 years ago, I'd have said, no way, I'm not doing a Ouija board. I remember when we went on our first investigation and we did like a yes-no board.
Yeah.
And even that was like, bloody hell, we're communicating. But I would say that as long as it's used properly, then a Ouija board is no different to any other piece of equipment. The only thing I think with a Ouija board is that you can conceive it to be whatever you want it to. So if you get a message through saying, I am Satan, die, or whatever, that's how you deal with that. So if you think, oh my God, it is Satan and I'm going to die. If think about it too much and you have negative connotations about it, then you're obviously going to worry and it's going to have a negative effect on you. Whereas like we do, we're just like, all right, yeah, okay, of course it is.
Yeah.
Move
you
on.
take no notice, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that for me, that would be like the biggest misconception for me was the Ouija board and how dangerous it is. But I don't think it's any more dangerous than another piece of equipment, to be honest. It's my favourite piece of equipment, I'd say.
Yeah. But it's because of that, isn't it? It's because you get have a conversation, whereas, a K2 meter flashing can't exactly tell you that it's going to kill you unless you say, are you going to kill me if you go up to red lights.
And I think as well, like that's what I like. I like being able to, it's nice to get information that you can then think, right, I'm going to go away actually, and I'm going to look at that and I'm going to see if that's true, because you can almost confirm it. You can confirm the information. Whereas if a K2 meter beeps, then easily that could be put down to, well, electrical fault, or your phone was ringing, or, like for me, I don't care what anybody else thinks, but for me, I know that we're not moving that glass. So I know that if that information comes through that is absolutely perfect, then for me, that's really good evidence.
So you mentioned feeling a cold that you pertain to be a spirit. Have you ever seen a ghost?
Well, I think I did, but then again, because it's been so long, I'm like, well, maybe it was just a bloke walking his dog, or So yeah, we were in where were we? I can't even remember. It was a graveyard.
Stonyhurst.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
It was a
remember
cemetery anyway, wasn't it? It was a cemetery, and we'd had some communication through the Ouija board. It was still daylight, so it wasn't, and it didn't feel eerie at all. We went back to the car to get some bits out, and I just saw a guy, just like a man, just walk in between the gap of, well, there was an opening, and he just walked past. He just walked past the gate, and looked so normal. But I just
with a dog.
No, I didn't have a dog. But at first I thought dog walker, because we'd seen dog walkers. So I don't know why. I just thought, I'm just going to see where he's going. And as it wasn't far, it was, I don't know, 5 meters maybe to the gate. And as I walked out, it was a full open space. There was nobody there. Nobody. I looked right, I looked left. There was absolutely no one. And I don't know, I just got this sinking feeling. And I remember coming back to you and I was like, that's really odd. That's not normal. You know, he couldn't have gone anywhere. And the fact that I even felt that I needed to go and follow him, that to me, that was almost like a sign as well. I would never normally follow people walking through a cemetery, but I don't know, it just didn't feel right. So I don't know, maybe not. It wasn't see-through, you know, it didn't walk through a wall. But that's
not that you saw.
Not that I saw. But yeah, I don't know. I think that was probably the closest I've got to from memory. Obviously, you've seen what you think is a spirit, but it wasn't a person, was it? It was more of a shape. So everybody that you speak to, all of their sightings are so different. You see people like talk about people, is it in York or where they see legs or, you know, they don't see the full bodies.
The Romans in the sort of cellar walking in a lower height than the actual, so it's no legs, it's just
that's
the
it.
Romans up to the shins.
Yeah, which makes sense, I guess.
From the
So
shins
yeah,
up.
So yeah, that's all I can say from memory. I can't think of anything else where I'm like, yeah, definitely a ghost.
Yeah. So what other sort of memorable experiences come to mind when I ask?
So for me, has to be most memorable. Well, there's a couple. Most memorable is probably the Ouija board session that we did at the York house with the little girl who came through, who literally told us about her murder and told us about her lost shoe and the hat that the murderer wore and the book that's been written by her family. And when we actually we had Jill on the sidelines asking the questions, we were even asking the questions. We had our fingers on the glass, and every piece of information that came through, it was like gold, wasn't it? It was just, for me, I'll never forget that. That was just, it was just, again, watching it on YouTube, I'd be like, that is totally rigged, because every piece of information was right. And that'll stay with me forever. That was amazing. The farmhouse as well, that's probably one that'll stay with me. I know Jade and I were in one of the outhouses, really dark, and we literally heard someone walking at the other side of the barn. That really scared me because you couldn't see anything. So all I was thinking, holy shit, is it a person? Couldn't see anything. And then we had major activity on the grouse in the farm, which was said to be Sam. And no one affects the grouse like Sam does when he comes through. And then Lucy obviously saw what we thought to be some sort of person in the bathroom. So yeah, again, like it gives me goosebumps even thinking about it. But that was a crazy night. And then one final one would have to be when we were, I think it was only a few of us, it might be me, you and Jill maybe, when we were sat and the room just went cold, and the ceiling, it was like someone was walking on the bloody ceiling, and it was like Sam came through, if you believe what was said on I think we had a Ouija board out maybe, I can't remember, and then the baby monitor at that night as well went off, I think, if I remember rightly. So yeah, I don't know, it's like if I started to look back and read other investigations, I'd be like, oh god, yeah, that one. But those few things, I think when you ask me, they're the ones that come to the top of the list. That I left feeling like, bloody hell, I can't explain that. That's weird. For me, it's just a feeling. I feel like you just get a feeling, and I can't explain what the feeling is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you have any equipment that you think is essential? You said a Ouija board. But...
Ouija board. So it's funny. I know people. This is probably controversial, but I think I don't like to rely on electrical equipment too much, because I think Gauss is great, K2 is great, but there could be something in the building that you don't know about. Could be someone's phone, could be anything. There's a lot of things you need to rule out before you can say, yeah, that's really good evidence. The apps, I just don't trust them, although you can get really good evidence from them potentially. I just, all the time I'm thinking, well, is it just throwing words out, or, you know. I really like the idea of Estes method. I've never done it myself. I love the idea of it because I've seen results other teams can get. But again, until I do it myself, I am skeptical, even though we've had amazing results at York. I have to see it for myself and I have to hear it for myself for me to be able to be like, bloody hell, I can't explain it. And then that's when I'll go away and think, yeah, that's really good. But for equipment wise, I would say for me, it's just standard, old school Ouija board. Off the top of my head, yeah. I can't really think of anything else that I would choose over that. I think that would always be my go-to. I like to use my, being and my feelings and think, like I say, I just have a feeling sometimes that it's just off.
So if you were to be off on your own one time, right, and you decided to ghost hunt, and you were on your own in a building, what would you first think to try? What would you do?
Oh, God, sitting silent and asking anyone not to talk to me. Not even joking. Honestly, probably tapping, like knocking out, asking for whistles, things that I'm like, okay, I definitely heard a whistle or I definitely heard a tap, rather than the obvious, which again, love it. For example, Project Fear, love it because they get great things. But I'd always be thinking, oh yeah, but is it just a coincidence? If I tap 3 times and then I get a tap in 5 minutes, it's 3 times, I'm thinking, well, I can't explain it. No machine has done that. That's, take it or leave it. I feel like I would just use myself, not any equipment really.
So advice then for upcoming ghost hunters who haven't investigated yet: where would you put your money? Where would you put your time in on an investigation?
So first bit of advice I would say, which is probably the most important in my eyes, is get together with people that are like-minded, but also people that you fully trust, because I think there's no point going to a location with a team of people who, all really want to find a ghost. But if you can't trust them, you're never going to believe that evidence anyway. So I would say, firstly, find the people that you trust that are interested in it. And then I would say, it depends what you're looking for as well, what you want. So if you're looking for communication, again, I would say Ouija board is the best form of communication. You can get full-blown sentences. If you're just looking, you might just want to go around a location with a gauss or ask for it to click if there's a presence. So it depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. Like I said, that a lot of people are scared of Ouija boards because of the communication that you can have. So, but I would say the main thing is just to get together with people that you are trustworthy. Because I see so many things on TV and I'm just like, that's a load of rubbish. It's not true. And I just couldn't be in a team with people that I thought were faking it, and it would just, that's not what I'm in it for. I actually want to know if there's any like life after death. So yeah.
Speaking of which, has it changed your attitude to death at all?
So I'm not scared of dying, as in I'm not scared of the physicality of dying. Obviously, I wouldn't want to leave my kids. That's probably the worst thing. But everything I hear, I watched a video the other night about like near-death experiences and people who stood watching their body be resuscitated, and it sounds like actually everybody who says they've almost died, or people that spirits we've spoken to, they describe death as bliss. So that doesn't scare me. The actual physical dying doesn't scare. So yeah, no, I'd just be keen to understand. I just want to know what happens after when you die. Where do you go? What happens? Is it a holding area? These lessons that we're supposed to learn in every life. I want to know what my lessons are. Like what am I learning now? Like, have I already learned my lesson? I sit and worry and I think, oh my gosh, like I've not really learned anything yet. What if like in 5 years time something awful happens to me? And that's the lesson that I'm always like preempting what my life lessons are, which I maybe is reading into it a little bit too much. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like every life has lessons to learn in it. So I'm just keen to understand what mine are.
But you've got 2 kids, you've got a girl and a boy, and you're married, and that is a lot of life lessons are learned through that. There are people who don't have children, so don't learn any of that. The people who don't settle down don't learn any of that. So you are learning.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm just waiting for the bad lessons.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like it's definitely made me think more about life after death and what happens.
And what about skeptics? How would you deal with a complete skeptic?
I deal with one every day. I live with one. So my husband is biggest skeptic going. Like even when I get in off an investigation and he's like, "So how was it?" I'm like, "Fine." I just don't even tell. I don't even tell him what's happened.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for people to be skeptics. I honestly completely get it. And I think unless you look at mum. Mum, I would say, is a skeptic. But as soon as I start telling her things that have happened, or when I told her I was going to York, please don't go. I don't think you should go to York. I don't think it's a good idea. But you're a skeptic. So what are you scared of? Are you scared about my mental well-being in case something happens and you're worried that it's going to scare me? Or I don't know. So I think there's different levels of skepticism, but for me, fine, not worried about it at all. And if anything, it makes it even more exciting when you catch amazing, phenomena, because there's a chance that it might just persuade them, So if things happen that are crazy, I speak to James, and sometimes he's a bit like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah." People are skeptics for a reason. People are always going to be skeptics, and if they don't want to believe, it's very easy not to believe. So
yeah. But not everything is a ghost either.
Exactly. So I think, and that's the thing, I'm kind of in the middle. I think I do believe that there are spirits, but again, I'm very quick to look at natural things, or make sure, again, like I say, I have to walk away from it thinking I can't explain it. There's no natural cause, and then that's when I'm like, oh bloody hell, that was really good. That was impressive.
Well, like when the spirit told you about Alice's shoes, and we didn't know that.
Nobody knew that. It literally happened that day. Yeah, that she'd learnt to tie shoelaces, and they'd literally said it. But then James would be like, "Well, how does the spirit know that? Like, you've just met them tonight. Well, how do they know that happened earlier in the day? They're mind readers." But then I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't know, but it happened, and that's the sort of thing. That's what I like. I like that kind of personal information. I find that really interesting.
Yeah. Why can't your older ghost relatives come through and say, "Hi Bex, how you doing? It's Sheila."
Yeah, good old Sheila.
Yeah.
I don't know. And is that because they've moved on then to their next life? I don't know.
Yeah.
This
And
is what I mean about
as soon as you try to explain it, you start thinking, well, I'm just painting in the gaps. I've got no evidence of what's coming out of my mouth. Oh, well, maybe they just can't. On what basis?
Exactly. And then I don't know. I think I don't know. This is why I say I've got more questions now than I did when I started. I feel like actually the answers that we have had and the communication we've had just opens up doors to more questions. It doesn't actually answer anything.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was like, yeah, dead people, that's it. They can just walk through walls and talk to you if they want to. Now I'm like, well, wait a minute. So if my grandma's not a ghost because she's not come through, and she would have come through if she was a ghost, then where is she and why isn't she there? And where is she? Is she reincarnated? Is she like another person? Or so it just blows your mind.
Yeah. I always think it's not my job to convince people. All we can do is lay out what we find as it's found and say, oh, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good point. A really good point. And I think I did used to always try and convince people. I think that was something I did used to do. But now I feel like now I've had experiences where I'm like, well, I believe. So I've seen things that I can't, I have to believe now. I can't not.
Yeah.
So
when we talk about what we've had, it's like I think, well, it sounds so baffling. Why would you believe it?
Yeah.
I get it.
And in a way, that's a compliment, because I think, well, I was there and I saw that and I know it's real, and that's even more special.
Yeah. Well, Becky, thank you very much for coming on this episode. Very nice to talk to you about this and sit down with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good.
So, yeah, take care, and I'll see you on another investigation.
Yeah, see you soon.